Hey, this is Sabrina Monarch. So, as a longtime practitioner of astrology and being Pluto focused and soul focused, and also getting really into research on the astrological and mythic eros, my whole astrology practice has always been about like having the expansive sight and contacting threads of vision that electrify and open up new and hidden pathways. But all of this is also about jumping into life, right? Like if you're consulting astrology to understand yourself, that understanding eventually does translate into how you're participating. And so, one of the threads that has really been guiding and energizing my whole astrological pursuit has been about the erotic. It has been about these big experiences that I've had in love, uh, starting in maybe when I was 19 was maybe one of the first like earth-shattering types of experiences. It's always hit hard for me, like just a romantic, but I would have these kind of out of this world, beyond experiences, and then go through this kind of integration period after and really, be personally motivated by wanting to live my soul life, wanting to be fully here, incarnated, and wanting to experience the richness of the erotic. So naturally, this opened, I'm living in Crete. I moved here because I had this like deep vision and body knowing. And then I began to incorporate sexological intimacy coaching into my astrology work, into my work in general, because I don't actually like one given session may not blend both of those things. So, how I would really put it is that I have expanded my work. And it's been wonderful to feel your support in that and to have put out to my audience, like, I'm offering this thing, and for people to be like, yeah, I'm down. like, even though I have built a platform around astrology. And some of the integration or the synthesis that I'm passionate about here is that as astrologically minded people or as astrologers, if you are in a practice of it, your mapping of reality is expansive, right? Like you are seeing the fabric of reality in a highly poetic and mythic way. And that mapping is very like, broad, and it like moves out into the world, into events that are happening, into other people. You're also mapping your inner life and your depths. And what I love about sexological intimacy coaching, and I wanted to free my voice to just start talking about this modality. Um, I feel like when approaching a really broad topic, like what is astrology or what is sex, right? What are the sexual mysteries? What is sexological intimacy coaching? That often the best entry points for me are getting really granular and getting out in the weeds. And so I had this intuition recently to just let myself do that. So I don't have a script for today. Like I'm just speaking from my passion on the topic. How I feel this connects with sexological intimacy coaching. This is a modality that I think really beautifully creates a lot of pathways for body mapping and for mapping our experience of sensation and of the erotic. And so, what I found as an imagery this summer for this exploration was it's kind of like slowing down an ocean wave because similar to the astrological Pluto being about our deepest desire, right? And like the reason why you incarnated. And by the way, the Felt Sense School of Evolutionary Astrology is open for enrollment through October 31st. So I'm reteaching astrology, and it's evolutionary astrology, which is a Pluto-centered astrology. And this course is the updated version of being 10 years in practice and 8 years in teaching. But we start with Pluto in evolutionary astrology. So it's this part of your chart, this part of you that's like your deep, deep down essence, why you even chose to exist, and the magnetic attraction that you had to this life in particular to be the place of all the raw material and inheritances and challenges that would support your soul growth through this particular incarnation. And when we look at deep, deep desire, it's often clustered with a lot of story and resistance and fear and turmoil and longing, because it's not no big deal, your deepest desire, right? So there is kind of like a process of untangling some of these associations. This is what Pluto has taught me over the years, is like how to get really more clear about desire versus all the things that constellate around it, all the manipulations or patterns or compensations that cluster and collect around the desire, because it takes a lot to hold that charge. So this was the context that I had with Pluto. But now when I think about it with the erotic, with sex, the image that came to me this summer was the art of slowing down an ocean wave. So the ocean wave being all of the content, and this is a particular image that, I would source from myself because I have a Venus Mercury conjunction in 29 degrees of Pisces. So for me, I had the reoccurring experience of different kind of enchanted story arcs that would begin with a lot of like awe and wonder and like wowness, like a lot of, heart eye energy and this is amazing, or like my biggest dreams are coming true, or like I can project onto this experience or this other person, like the deepest desires of my heart, or like my life moving forward in a meaningful direction, and kind of getting like really high in that kind of upswell of the wave. And then suddenly getting to a place mid-story of like, wait, how did we get here? Like there's been a little bit of an acceleration, and finding myself in a moment where I lack the ability to communicate, or there's something that I'm realizing now at that, deeper into the arc of like, oh, something has changed, or I have new awareness, and how to bridge that in real time or in connection. And so the process, that caused me a lot of confusion and turmoil in my life, that particular dynamic. And then while Saturn in Pisces was sitting right on that Venus Mercury conjunction, I was going deep into sexological intimacy coaching and the training and learning this modality and all these practices to essentially get extremely granular. Right, presencing the way that inside of touch, inside of intimacy, inside of relationship, that a lot is happening, right? There's just the presence of reality, right? Like all the information, like if you look around your room, for example, it's like there's a lot happening in reality at any given moment, especially if we open up our sensitivity. But when you bring in touch, you're also bringing in the body and the body's stored memories of pain, trauma, what we're holding on to. You bring in intimacy and connection, and you bring in all of our projections, hopes, desires, fears, associations. Right? You bring in the chemical cascade or the hormonal cascade of eroticism and turn on, and that brings up yet another layer. And then you also have our personality and our ego and our habitual consciousness and all of this stuff. And all of that is happening in the present moment. And a lot of kind of like in movies, for example, the first kiss between the romantic protagonist is like this hot and heavy, open the apartment door and like just, yeah, run into the wall, like to the couch, to the bed, like just this passion, right? And all this energy happening quickly. And also kind of a commodification or this idea of sex, like what we think it is or should be. And that on the way to that experience, there's a lot of small, little granular things that are happening. So, what I found about this modality was that through the practices, um, there's a lot of emphasis on slowing down and tuning into what are you noticing, what's happening, and having it happen in these kinds of micro containers where you might be just doing a belly massage, like being guided into self touch and getting to be, pausing and being asked, and what are you noticing? What do you feel in your body? And what kind of tightness is that tightness? There's many different practices that could happen inside of a session, but there's over and over again the cultivation of being able to notice and communicate in real time what's happening in your body in various different explorations or dynamics, of which you have co-created inside of the container, of which you can stop at any point if you need to, or readjust in certain ways for your comfort. But there's this way of basically approaching these granular steps to intimacy or to embodiment with a lot of choice and being able to feel decisions in your body as opposed to doing it just from your mind. So I don't know if that makes sense because it is like a whole, it's almost something more to experience. But in terms of the slowing down the ocean wave part, I began to notice a transformation in my capacity to navigate flirtation, conversation with people in the world, intimacy itself. Almost like things had slowed down, and I was able, like in The Matrix, when Neo can dodge bullets because time slows down. Like places that used to be a flood, places where overwhelm used to just happen, time had slowed down, and I was able to notice what actually all was going on. One example I can give for this as well is that a huge part of sexological intimacy coaching involves something called a body poem, which is that through when you're guided into a body experience or an exploration and you're being asked questions, the practitioner is writing down your exact words and can read them back to you later at the end, if you'd like, as what's called a body poem. So say you were like in some kind of self-touch journey, or you were being guided through body focusing or something like that, being asked questions and, what are you noticing? And if that sensation had a voice, what might it be saying? And you're just kind of in the trance, like having that experience and speaking. And then when you hear your words back, it feels amazing. Like you feel kind of like nourished by your own words. It's like you had the experience, those are words you said, but hearing them back over crystallizes in that reflection like new awarenesses that you didn't have the first time you had the experience. So one thing that happened this summer in relationship to this was that I started to get into, like, I loved the body poem and I would do it for myself a lot. And I would also make songs. Like, I am an amateur who makes songs on Voloco using beats and autotune, right? But I would turn my inner visionary experiences into songs and then listen to them sometimes like over and over and over again to like really get the learning of like, okay, I had this vision from my pussy, or I had this vision from my heart. And then I turned it into a poem, and then I turned it into a song, and then I listened back to it until like something clicked and it really opened and made sense. But inside of this, I had a experience of falling in love this summer and getting to fall in love in slow motion. And it was like a little bit of love and maybe a little bit of, just what it feels like to be so open or open to another person. And instead of purely attaching this experience to the other person, I was able to experience all my patterns in slow motion of the ways that I might get a little bit drunk when I'm falling in love, or the ways that certain fears or anxieties come up. And I was able to just work through this in a much more luxurious and resourced way than ever before. And I wrote what I thought was a love song and, made it, listened to it on my headphones. And the more I listened to it, I was like, this isn't a love song. Like, this is me in grief and mourning because of that feeling of standing at the precipice. Like, some of the lyrics were like, how'd you know how to show me a door I've never seen before? Behind the door is a river, a rush I'd really like to ride. Did you knock at the door to come inside? Like, this kind of, you've just shown me a place of deep feeling. And if I'm going to open this door, I want to know that you're coming with me, and I'm scared. And when I listened to the song, I was like, wow, like this is maybe in some sense a love song, but being able to see that my intention, say, in writing the song was to kind of like offer this love poem up. And when I listened back to it, it came more as like an expression of need, of like, will you hold me? Will you make this safe for me? Right. And getting to see myself in that and slow down that whole process and find clarity and resource in it instead of immediately getting carried away with that, projecting that onto the other person, having maybe the repeated experience of not being held or caught in that, and then being like in despair and like, why doesn't it work out for me, et cetera, et cetera. Like, actually just getting to expand and open inside of the beauty and the vulnerability and the prayer that came through in that song. And how do I really want to navigate at more choice in this moment? So, what I've seen thus far with the clients that I've worked with this modality, people love the body poem. People feel very nourished by hearing their own words back to them. And we're not used to giving language, approximate language, because these things are hard to translate. We don't have a lot of language for interoception, like feeling what's happening inside of our body. And the beautiful thing, like this is so Taurian, like the astrological Taurus, is that before we start to do this practice, really, of like tuning into the sensations that we're having in our body, we don't feel a lot per se. We might feel some aches and pains and things that make us scared, right? Or some forms of pleasure or something like that. But there's kind of like a lower level awareness of what's happening inside because we've been trained to like live up here. And when you start to tune into the aliveness of like, you could be having this whole wild sensation that's happening in your heart, or like this traveling energy between your throat and heart, or electric tingles up your quads or something. Like there can be all these different alivenesses happening in the body. And it's our attention, it's the practice of bringing our attention to our physical experience and also holding this kind of frame of building the compassion and acceptance in our own witnessing, that the body actually begins to speak more. And the body speaking more, like we might have learned that the body speaking was just pain, or it was a signal that something was wrong with us and we needed to go to the doctor, that something bad is happening, versus actually tuning into, your body as like a planet, right? Like that there's a visionary experience happening here. And I think that the body poem, the experience of like tuning into sensations, having it be turned into a poem that's like read back to you is so like, can be so amazing. And that when, how that then applies to intimacy, because this is just one of kind of many things that can be covered with sexological intimacy coaching, um, is just that when it comes to all of the sensations that happen inside of getting close to someone or feeling the distance between you and someone, or having certain parts of your body touched, or the sensory awareness that you have in your own hands when you touch someone. All of this often happens without language. It's like a unique kind of modality, I feel like, to have these body centered journeys where you're having a sensational experience and you're being asked, what are you noticing? And developing the skill of your voice, your power of self representation to give language to things that ordinarily aren't represented. This same thing is a lot of what I notice with astrology, right? Like this ability to, through this beautiful symbolic language of astrology, name subtle threads of our experience, subtle threads of your unconscious, subtle threads of what's happening in any given moment. And through that representation through language, this kind of like, wow, like that hits, that's intimate, like that touches me. And so finding the connection between astrology and deep body journeys was a huge joy that has been continuing to unfold. And so I hope that gives some of a glimpse into this modality. And I do want to say that I am offering for people that want to sample sexological intimacy coaching, just to get a sense of what is it or how you can experience it. I'm going to speak to like some of why you might approach it. I think overall, it could be having a more expansive container or field to reflect on your experience of sex and intimacy, whether you're having it or not. And to explore it through these embodiment types of journeys or these practices, which are co-created at the beginning of the session in terms of you have a learning intention in a session, what you want to explore. And then I suggest some different possibilities. We feel into what sounds good and then create a time container and go into that journey. It's an opportunity for experiential somatic learning and getting to approach what are you learning inside of this area of your life? Because I'm coming to see more and more that the erotic, that sexuality, like is a place of learning. Similar to how your career or how, um, personal development or just like other areas of life that are reflective and that you're having learning experiences through, sex is similar. except it's really highly charged as a topic. It has a lot of associations and entanglements. And I find that a modality like this is a resource to unpack and get more granular about it. So, the main intention that brought me to study this, besides just kind of this being a thread that has compelled me throughout my life, was just feeling into the part of me that was waiting for someone else to appear externally who was just my perfect person, who would just be everything I needed in some sense, and feeling as though I want to be in the creative seat in my life. And what is it that I am not seeing or that I'm missing, where I could be more in my creational power and more in my own agency to create the kind of erotic fulfillment that I really seek instead of projecting it onto this magical other who I hope will appear at some point. And I have found so many pathways into that prayer. So I think identifying what is it about the erotic that you want to improve your relationship with, and that could be the start of a learning intention. But for those of you who want to try this modality, I have created some space in my calendar for like a kind of discovery call. And then I'm offering 4 session packages for $800. And that would be an opportunity to explore a learning intention, like an overarching learning intention and some micro learning intentions per session of something that you want to explore about the erotic, about your relationship to it. The discovery call is a way to just see if it's a fit, right? To like ask any questions or we can have a personal conversation about it. I think because of the nature of this work, also, I think it's important just to get that sense of is it a good fit? So the calendar's below for that. And I don't know how long I'll be offering this, but this is something I'm offering right now as a special and just a way to get to know this kind of work and start this experience. I also offer Oracle Body, which is a longer term coaching container. I'll link in the notes. But this 4 session option is a way to experience, feel into it. Also, the Felt Sense School of Evolutionary Astrology is coming up. And though astrology hasn't been the main topic of what I've been talking about in this video, this course is about becoming astrologically fluent. And becoming astrologically fluent isn't just so that you understand astrology or know what charts are saying or something like that. It's actually the like living ripple effect of that expansion that keeps playing out in your life for years, right? It is not of small consequence to develop conversation with the planets, with these great bodies, the planets, with the constellations, that through that giving language, giving understanding, creating a felt relationship with these vast energies that are at the edges of our world, that you light up things that weren't lit up before. Not just about the world around you, but also inside, right? Secret kind of inner pathways inside. And you don't yet know where that's going to unfold and open for you. But I think that, I spoke to this in a recent podcast here about your own direct connection to cosmos, of just similar to not having like interoception of like, what do I feel in my body right now? And that process of bringing body sensation to life. Not having direct connection with the constellations and the planets. Like a lot of people just kind of project that onto like, that's not for me, or like that's what astrologers do, and I just listen to their forecasts. And it's like, why not have your own connection to this wisdom school, this study of nature, right? Like, what would it mean for you to bring, because if you're here and you follow astrology, you don't think that the planets are inert, just dead rocks and balls of gas. But the kind of dim level of personal association of like, whatever, it's Jupiter. I don't know what Jupiter is, and like that kind of dimness versus really understanding Jupiter, really understanding the essence of Jupiter and seeing it, how it lives inside of you, your relationship with that archetype, where you see it out in the world, where you have ruptures with Jupiter, right? And like what it means to actually come into an alive conversation with that planet, for example, and to do that for the constellations and the planets, to understand this language for yourself will absolutely make your life more vivid and enchanted on a daily basis. But it also becomes a medium for giving language, granular, nuanced, exquisite language to the intricacies of your soul, your deeper essence. So, everything that I'm doing here, that I've been talking about with sexological intimacy coaching, with astrology, there is this similar thread of allowing our presence and awareness to grow more expanded, more lucid, more resourced, more dropped in, connected, so that you're expanding as you're also deepening in your capacity for intimacy with yourself and with life. This isn't about the overwhelm of capturing a bunch of information and having to juggle even more stuff in your busy schedule, but it's actually relaxing back into a wisdom field where the way that you're connecting with the information around you opens and expands in this way that things drop into presence. That there's kind of like an organization that happens of, oh, I get it. Or like, I see these threads, I see these connections. I have a language that's helping me understand my life. I have new body literacy for interoception, right? Like all of these things are about connection. So I'm going to leave this here. The links for everything I've mentioned, the Felt Sense School of Evolutionary Astrology, getting on a call about sexological intimacy coaching, information about Oracle Body for those of you that want to journey more long term. All of that can be found in the notes. Thanks for watching. And of course, like this video, let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll be back soon.